Good evening, everybody. Is the Safety and the Sportswriter show with Knoxville, Nate, and Big Joe as we get ready to talk to you about the world of sports. A lot of NFL to get to, and we might even talk a little bit NCAA football after a few surprising results on Saturday. A lot to get to, including a major firing this week. Not unexpected firing, but who they picked to replace him is a little weird. And we're gonna talk about schedules and a lot of other things tonight. Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, bud. How about you?
Doing good, doing good. Can't complain. Doing a lot better than I think Frank Reich is. Maybe right now my future is maybe a little bit brighter the rest of the year than Jeff Saturday's. But let's get right into it. We knew that Frank Reich. It looked like Frank Reich's time with the Colts was coming to an end. Disappointing. Major changes in upheavals at quarterback and all these other things that have been going on. And let's face facts, they I don't want to say underperformed, but they're just not doing as well as expected in a tough AFC. And they pulled the plug on him and then went to ESPN to pick his replacement rather than two former head coaches who were on staff right there in John Fox and Gus Bradley. Start with you. What was your thoughts?
My thoughts, it's a goddamn embarrassment. I mean, it basically spitting in the face of everybody who coaches and, has gone out and spent their entire life busting their butts, learning the craft of coaching and, working their way up the ranks from a graduate assistant to a position coach to a coordinator to a head coach, and that's kind of the way that it works. But instead of, getting someone who's actually qualified for the job, he goes and hires a former player who he's buddies with, who's on television and gives him the head job. I just think it's kind of a slap in the face to all the guys that are coaches. This guy's never coached at the NFL level. He's never coached in college. I believe he coached some in high school, being in this, helping out a team in his, where he lives or whatever. Who cares? Coaching in high school is nothing close to being a head coach in the National Football League. And let's be honest, we talked about this weeks ago when they fired the offensive coordinator who didn't call the plays. Yeah. And we're just like, what is going on? I saw, somebody's got to fall on the sword, I guess. So they're firing, I can't remember his name right now, but the offensive coordinator who did not call the plays, Frank Reich, called the plays. Right. So we're kind of like, this is strange. And this came, on the heels of benching Matt Ryan, who was the guy they went out and handpicked and traded for, and said he was going to be their starter. Now, was Matt Ryan playing great? No. Was he turning the ball over some? Yes. But they were still in second place in their division, and pretty good. I mean, look at all the teams that are 500 or worse. They still had a chance to win if they had kept Frank Reich and Matt Ryan. But no, the owner's got to go make a knee-jerk reaction, fire Frank Reich, and move on. And let's be honest, a lot of people have come out and said that the reason that Frank Reich got fired was because of his mishandling of the quarterback position. Nothing could be further from the truth. He didn't want, Andrew Luck to retire. He didn't really want Jacoby Brissett to be his starter. He didn't really want Phillip Rivers to retire. And he certainly didn't want Carson Wentz to be traded away last year. He wanted to, go into year two with a guy who knew his system and see what happened. But, the owner pulled the trigger on that, brought in Matt Ryan, and then took away Matt Ryan. So now they're rolling with Sam Ehlinger. And the only thing I can think is that they want to lose, and their goal is to, draft very high and get one of these college guys, because that's really the only thing that what they're doing is going to lead to.
Well, I mean, I will say, there have been examples in other sports where guys have come out of the booth, like Pat Riley with the Lakers in the early 80s and Joe Torre with the Yankees in the 90s. But those sports are different. Football is so, as you can see what good coaching can do. The New York Giants are the great example of when you get a good coach, it can change you. And the thing is, for an interim coach to come from ESPN, instead of, most of the time you hire from the staff there who knows the players, at least knows the playbooks, knows everything. Yes, Jeff Saturday someday if, like you said, he did the groundwork. I like him as an announcer, and it's his background in football as a player is pretty cool. If you look at it, I mean, he's had Peyton Manning he's worked with. Tom Moore was the offensive coordinator. Tony Dungy was the head coach. So he's been around some great football minds. But he hasn't been in the war room at draft days, and he hasn't been making up game plans for the last 10 years or whatever. That, I mean, I understand it's a placeholder position with the interim, but is this an audition for him, or is it just a placeholder position?
I don't know, but if you look back in the history of football coaching, a lot of times guys that were great players don't make great coaches.
No,
I mean,
don't.
Think about it. It's guys that are career coaches that end up being the best coaches. Sometimes guys that have played.
I think it depends on the position
well.
too. I think if you're going to look at a position, I would think that center would be a good position to start out with, because they're basically they coach the defense or the offensive line for the quarterback. They work a lot with calling the blocks and everything. That's not bad. It's not bad to have a center move in, and a great center wouldn't be bad. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, like I said, and like you said, he hasn't been in the locker room. He hasn't been in the war room. He hasn't been creating game plans. He's been criticizing results without really knowing the plays that are called. I mean, it's like it just makes no. Why not get Mike Greenberg? Why not get Stephen A. Smith?
No, that's my point. I mean, this guy, you say, oh, he was a center, he should know the calls and all this. And he was a head coach of Hebron Christian High School in Georgia for 3 years. He went 20-16 and then resigned. So 3 or 4 years later. So it's not like he went and started coaching in high school and tore it up and was so great that somebody wanted to give him a shot at another level. I mean, he wasn't even good really coaching in high school. So the thought that he's going to tear it up in the NFL, I don't understand. And look at what's happened in some of the other teams where they've gotten rid of the head coach, and it's kind of sparked the team by naming an interim guy, and the team's kind of rallied around that. Especially in college, we've seen it a few times at Georgia Tech and some other schools this year. But to go outside the box and just grab this guy from ESPN who's breaking down and criticizing the team and bringing him in, I just think the coaching staff in particular is not going to look fondly upon this. I mean, whether they like Jeff or not, I mean, I'm sure they do, because he's a likable guy. He's a really nice guy, and I'm sure they probably like him, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of animosity when they're like, oh, I could have potentially been promoted, but instead this guy who hasn't even been here is coming in and going to be telling me what to do now. Oh, this should go well. So if the Raiders can't win this week with Sam Ellinger at quarterback and Jeff Saturday at the coach, I think that McDaniel should be fired immediately.
Well, yeah. I mean, here's another. We can get to that in a minute, but I mean, back to the Saturday thing. The other thing that concerns me is, and you remember, I was a big Sam Ellinger supporter down in Texas. I rooted for the kid. Well, he's shown nothing. And if I'm Jeff Saturday and this is a audition for me, if this is something I really want to do, why wouldn't you put Nick Foles in?
Yeah, that's what I would. That's what I said 2 weeks ago. I said, if you really didn't like Matt Ryan and you were really making the change to win, put the guy in that's your backup, your number 2 quarterback, who's won a Super Bowl and was the MVP of the Super Bowl. You don't go down to the, and I like Sam Ellinger in college. He was a great college running back. Oh, excuse me. I mean, quarterback. He was actually a running back who threw the ball. Yeah, but whatever.
Tim Tebow.
He was Tim Tebow with a worse arm. So, put Nick Foles in there, who is a guy that can come in off the bench and provide a great spark. But now they're going with the college running back, and then they're going to have Parks Frazier calling the plays on Sunday. Do you know who Parks Frazier is?
I think he's a mechanic who fixed my brakes once.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying. If you, he was he spent 1 season as a offensive quality control coach, and was elevated to the assistant QB coach. and was a specialist assistant to the QBs this year, and now he's going to be calling plays. So I don't know, man. This looks like this spells disaster. Has disaster written all over it.
There's two things here. First of all, there just seems to be no plan. Okay, it just that's where the problem comes into it. It's like if you're going to make this change, if you're not going to allow him to bring, Nick Foles in as the quarterback, if you because that's probably one of the demands was for him to see what Sam Ellinger is. I would think that comes from the top. Because if I'm trying to audition for this job, I'm going to get the quarterback in there who gives me the best chance of winning. And let's face facts, Nick Foles, although it didn't hold up, he has won a Super Bowl. So, I mean, I would think he gives you a much better chance of winning than Sam Ellinger. And from what we've seen of Ellinger since he was the starter, I'm kind of firm on that. So, I mean, it's kind of like dipping your toe in the water and not making any decision at all. And if this is his plan right now, you might as well have kept Frank Reich. You're paying him anyways.
Yeah.
At this point, you just ride Frank Reich to the end of the season because you got to pay out that contract. I don't know how much he's got left on it. I'm sure he's got a year or two or whatever. Maybe it's the last year. I don't know. I didn't look at it. But you got to pay his contract out anyway. So why did you even make the change in the first place?
Well, yeah, and this all came on the heels of getting pistol whipped 26-3 by the Patriots. It's like, what did they expect? They thought that they were going to go in with Sam Ellinger at quarterback, and they're the worst offensive line in the NFL, and they were going to whip up on the Patriots in Foxborough. I mean, what a joke, dude! This is such a joke, and it's actually, I think, a huge black eye to the NFL right now because there's other guys and other teams that are doing their best to win, and then the Colts are just making a mockery of the whole thing, and it looks to me like their owner is back on the Oxycontin because this is just ludicrous. I mean, they scored 3 points in the entire game versus the Patriots, gave up 9 sacks, and yet they're still 3-5-1. And if you look at the standings, they're not that far out of it. I mean, if they kept Frank Reich, they kept Matt Ryan. They're still in second place in the division. The Titans just lost. They're only 2 games back or a game and a half back with their tie. So it's I don't even know what to say.
It's just a crazy time in this NFL. And the thing is, like you pointed out, the NFL right now is kind of wide open. There's some teams that are having really good years, but really when you look at things that are happening. The Josh Allen injury, how's that going to affect the Bills? If it's a real injury, if that's a real injury, they're in real trouble. Even though Case Keenum is their backup, Case Keenum can't run the ball like Josh Allen, and they don't have a running game. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the NFL where, like you said, they're not out of it, and you're going to make a choice in a decision like that, and then you make a wacky decision, which is just I don't know. It's like. I don't know if I could say they'll get a black eye because there's so much stuff that goes on around the NFL where you shake your head. You look at Dan Snyder and all the stuff that's going on with the Commanders, and you look at Houston and how badly run that operation been. Since they lost that game in Kansas City a few years ago in the playoffs. I mean, they've been a what are they doing kind of shake your head type deal. You look at Carolina.
Don't even get me started on Houston. I mean, how are people still going to games in Houston? How are people still pretending to be fans of this franchise? And they were making a big deal in the offseason, as me and you both witnessed, how they believed in this quarterback and acted like they, were going to stick with him because he gave them a chance to win. I mean, no offense to Davis Mills, but he's a horrible.
There are options out there.
There's other options.
There was much better options. At the time, you could have gone out and got and then what's going on in Carolina with Baker Mayfield's healthy, but you're going to stick with PJ Walker?
Yeah, after last week, did you watch the game last week? Did their coach was he even there? Because PJ Walker was abysmal and it was embarrassing. And then Baker actually got in the game and played played pretty well. I mean, PJ Walker was 3 of 10 for 9 yards and 2 interceptions. Baker Mayfield comes in, goes 14 of 20, 155 yards, 2 touchdowns, 126 rating, which is one of the best ratings he's ever had in his career. And then you're going to sit there this week and tell your team that PJ Walker gives you the best chance to win. If I was on that team, I would be laughing and would just walk out of the building because, once again, this makes no sense.
Well, yeah, because it's okay. Is this guy auditioning to potentially have a head coaching job? If you are, then why aren't you using the more established quarterback? Or are you just trying to screw things up so they get a chance at one of these high-profile quarterbacks coming out of college in the springtime? And if it's that, I just don't get it. I just you're paying Baker $17 million. What are you paying PJ Walker?
And that not much, and he should have been paying them for his performance last week. I mean, I can't recall a time that I saw a quarterback start the game, go 3 of 10 for 9 yards and 2 interceptions. I mean, that's just utterly embarrassing.
That's high school stats.
That guy should never play in another NFL game ever again, much less be starting. And he's starting in the game tonight. Yeah. So that should be good for the Falcons.
So, I mean, when you look around the NFL and you realize that you got those 3 examples of badly run organizations, and you realize the billions of dollars these things are worth. I mean, I know he works for the owners, but Roger Goodell should do what Pete Rozelle did once to straighten out the Giants. He told them who he was going to get to run their organization to straighten them out after years of being inept. Because in a league where you can go from being bad, as we've seen right here in New York City, if you get the right coaches and you get the right players, you can go from being bad to being competitive with just a few minor moves once you get the right coach and the right GM in place.
Yeah, or like in the instance of the Bengals, their coach sucks and they got the right quarterback and they still made it to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, you don't even need all the pieces. You just need 1 or 2 of the pieces and, you got a chance. So, I don't get it. I've got to be honest. I feel horrible for Lovie Smith. I mean, that guy is a good football coach. I mean, Think about what he did back when he was in Chicago. I mean, he took the Bears to the Super Bowl with Rex Grossman as their quarterback. If that's not great coaching, I don't know what it is.
Well, yeah, and they put him in a bad position where he just like I said, they're treating him, and this is where the Rooney Rule gets abused or gets rightfully so scrutinized when you sit there and they make these decisions and don't give the minority coaches a decent chance. You put him in a position where he has no chance. He has no quarterback. How long are you going to keep him before they fire him? You bring in Jeff Saturday from the booth, and you didn't interview anybody. You call it interim, but is it interim or is this kind of a way of giving him a chance because you want to hire him? What is it? I don't know, but it's when the uprising starts and all the complaints start about the Rooney Rule.
Yeah, which rightfully so. I mean, think about it. Jim Caldwell got fired from his job as the head coach of the Lions after winning 8, 9 games.
Yeah.
That one year. The Lions haven't come close to that since, and he hasn't been able to get a job anywhere in the league. Yet Jeff Saturday, who went 20-16 coaching high school, is now the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. I mean,
and Jim Caldwell has history with the Colts.
Exactly. And if I was Jim Caldwell, I would be pissed off. If I was Brian Flores, I would be pissed off, and I would be adding all this stuff into my lawsuit. And that's what I'm kind of talking about before when I was saying it was kind of a slap in the face to these guys that have been grinding for years to get a head coaching job. And then this guy just gets handed one because he's buddies with Pill Pop and Jim Irsay.
Well, like I said, I guess you don't have to be smart to be a billionaire.
You sure don't. You just have to have a smart daddy or a rich daddy.
So we got that to go. We've covered that a little bit. Now let's go back to last week. The Jets and the Bills. Where did that come from?
You're asking me?
Yes.
I have no clue. No idea. No idea. I got to be honest. I've been impressed with the Jets this year. The way that Robert Saleh has got this defense playing, the way that their offense has been executing despite not really having a great quarterback. I've been very, very impressed. But did I think that they were going to go in and take out potentially, what most people have been calling the best team in the NFL, the Buffalo Bills, who were 6-1 going into this game, 3-1 on the road? No, I did not expect that. And if anyone said they did, they're lying through their teeth.
And the game plan where they kept Josh Allen under wraps is just amazing. I mean, I was thinking that game was going to be like 35 points at least for the Bills, but to hold them to 17, I mean, that's a pretty dynamic offense with those two wide receivers and Josh Allen. That Jet defense, I think they're. I got to say, I've underrated them. I mean, those rookies they brought in and the players they had left over, and I like Robert Saleh, so I'm happy for him what's going on here. But my God, that AFC East is very interesting right now.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it in the offseason. This was by far the greatest draft that the New York Jets have ever had. And it's just becomes more apparent every week. I mean, their leading receivers, Garrett Wilson, who's a rookie, 8 catches, 92 yards. The stalwarts of their defense, Sauce Gardner, was just making plays all over the place and had a big interception there, which really, really helped them win this game. And then, Quinnen Williams, who they drafted a couple of years ago, is just going crazy. Jermaine Johnson, the other guy, the third first-round draft pick they got, tearing it up. And then, their second-round pick, Breece Hall, was potentially one of the best running backs in the league as a rookie before he got injured. And then their offseason pickup, C.J. Uzama from the Bengals, he's starting to play with them. Tyler Conklin, the other tight end they picked up, he's doing a pretty good job. You got to give their general manager some credit for what he did this offseason. He's got these young guys here who don't even remember how bad they're not old enough to know how long the Jets have sucked because they're just too young to even realize it, and they're playing as such.
And then you look at the AFC standings. I mean, every one of the teams is over 500. The Patriots are over 500 at 5-4, but they have a point differential over 30 points, where they've scored 30 more points than they've given up. Dolphins are a little bit under that. They had a couple of blowouts, but they have Tyreek Hill threatening to be the first 2,000-yard wide receiver.
Yeah.
The Jets 30 points or 20 points over points scored over how much they've given up, and the Bills were 100 points over. So I mean, that's a serious division. I mean, when you look at the rest of the NFL, and the one team that probably doesn't get out of that division, go to the playoffs, is going to be very pissed because they belong there.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is that with the expanded playoff format, potentially they can get 3 teams in, which looking right now they should. But there's a lot of football left to play, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here. The Dolphins. It's going to come down to who can stay healthy. I mean, the Dolphins have looked great. When Tua's been out there and he's played, they're undefeated. When he hasn't played, they've lost every game. So, that's the same thing with the Bills right now. I mean, they're still atop the division at 6-2, but the Jets and the Dolphins are nipping on their heels right now at 6-3 apiece. And if Josh Allen doesn't play, I got to be honest, their stranglehold of the division, which is, only a half a game, it could go away really quickly. And, the question is, how long is he going to be out? And we really don't know that because they're not telling us how severe this injury is. They're calling it a UCL sprain. But we all know that ligament's a famous ligament. Old Tommy John, who everybody thinks is a doctor, was actually a pitcher for the New York Yankees. And, he made that injury famous. And, this could put him out for a long time if it actually requires surgery. And I don't think we actually really know right now the severity of this injury as a whole.
Well, I tell you one thing is for Who Josh Allen reminds me a lot from my youth. You were too young to ever see this guy play. Was Burt Jones, who came out of LSU, the Ruston Rifle. He was a lot like Josh Allen in the fact he could throw the ball as far as anybody. He ran like the wind. I mean, and he was reckless. He would get out there and take on linebackers and leap over defensive backs. And he had a shoulder injury. He had been, I think, the league MVP, and then he had a shoulder injury and tried to play through it and was never quite the same quarterback again. So if I'm Josh Allen, or I'm close to Josh Allen, yeah, you want to win the Super Bowl every time you get an opportunity. And the Bills look to have a great opportunity this year, but at what cost? If he goes out there and it's really damaged, I mean, you're talking about a young man in his career you're playing with right there. So I would be very, very cautious.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to Rich Gannon talk about just some guys that he was around that suffered, an injury to the UCL, and one was Rob Johnson, the former USC quarterback who played for the Bills and then came out and played for the Raiders, and he got hurt and never came back and never played again. Joe Germain, the former quarterback for Ohio State, who played for the Eagles, and then he came out and joined Rich Gannon for the Raiders, injured the same thing, and he never played again. So this is an injury that could be very catastrophic for especially for a quarterback who's trying to throw the ball 60 yards downfield and stretch it down. So we'll see what happens. But right now I think they're just calling it a sprain, and there's been no indication that he needs surgery. But it doesn't look good, because I saw the injury happen. I've seen a video of it, and he did come back and throw one throw that went straight into the ground, right? And then he threw 160 yards. So it just adds to the question marks that are surrounding him right now.
And then before I really want to look over that article I sent you about the schedules remaining for who we've seen. But as you brought it up briefly, Josh McDaniel continues to underwhelm, losing to the Jags. Not that the Jags haven't improved. Not that Trevor Lawrence isn't playing better this year than he was as a rookie, and that's kind of expected. But it's still the Jags, and you're the Raiders, who under that interim coach were playing so well, and they went out and got their high-profile coach, and now can't seem to get out of their own ways.
Well, yeah, you can say the Jaguars were playing better, but they had lost 5 in a row. Okay, yeah. And this is also the third time that the Raiders had a 17-point lead or greater and ended up losing the game. So, this to me is just showing a complete ineptitude in the coaching world, because they certainly have the talent on this team. I mean, you've got almost $300 million locked up in Derek Carr, Renfro, Devontae Adams, and they're not getting much out of it just because excuse me, I left out the tight end, who's not even playing.
Yeah, he's injured.
And I think that's that's also hurting them. Missing him is big, but the rest of these guys have to step up, and it's just Devontae Adams or bust. He was targeted 17 times on Sunday for 10 catches for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. But other than him, there's just really been no spark to that offense, and Derek Carr seems to have regressed, in my opinion.
Yeah, and McDaniel's supposed to be, the quarterback whisperer. He's supposed to be the guy that can get the maximum. He may be the quarterback whisperer, but I think without Belichick whispering in his ear, he's probably not the quarterback whisperer.
Well, and this team's been, two different Jekyll and Hyde at home and on the road. I mean, they're now 0-5 on the road, and it just seems like they can't seem to get it together when they're outside their own building. And the week previous, when they went to New Orleans, a team that's struggled mightily, they laid an egg and got beat 24-0, and then then you follow it up by losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had dropped 5 in a row. I mean, this is getting bad, and if they lose, like I said, this weekend to the Jeff Saturday led Colts, I got to be honest. I wouldn't be shocked to see Josh McDaniels heading back to New England. Maybe that's
Yeah,
why they didn't. Maybe that's why Belichick didn't hire an offensive coordinator. He knew that McDaniels was going to get fired mid-season. He was going to welcome him back with open arms.
could be, could be. You never know. Belichick is a crafty devil.
Hey, you never know, man.
I want to pull up that article I gave you, and I don't know how much you looked it over on the strength of schedules of these teams, and I just want to go over a couple we're looking at here. The Ravens look like, I don't know, they're saying they've got the best path. They have the combined record of their remaining opponents is 24-44.
Yeah, I mean, they're starting to play, and the only thing that really concerns me about the Ravens is the passing game. I mean, they brought Deshaun Jackson in to try and help because Rashad Bateman has been ruled out for the rest of the season. He was, kind of Lamar's one wide receiver threat that was, making any type of move for him, and now. Bateman's out for the year, and Andrews, his tight end, who's the other threat he has, he's been banged up, and we're not sure whenever he's coming back. So they go out and bring in, 48-year-old Deshaun Jackson, and he lasts about 2 quarters
Right.
before he's injured, and now he's out. So, the passing game concerns me. I mean, they're always able to run the ball, and they've definitely gotten better on defense with the additions of the linebacker Roquan Smith, and also getting JPP to help with the pass rush. But I'm concerned about these wide receivers because they suck.
I'm going to just take a quick. Okay, so the Bengals got a little tougher way to go because the combined record of their remaining opponents is 37-30. They have looks like they got the Titans, the Chiefs, the Pats, the Bills, and they have to play the Ravens again, and that's your biggest competition. So that kind of works better for the Ravens. How much do you think that effect is, or is it just we're overanalyzing this kind of stuff?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do, with the division that these teams are in. I mean, obviously, when you look, some of the preseason predictions that we talked about have not really come to fruition. We thought that the AFC West would be by far the best division in football based on what they looked like on paper, but in reality, it hasn't really transpired. But in that the AFC North has played pretty well. I mean, the Bengals are 5-4, not exactly what we expected, but we did. Me and you both predicted a little bit of a letdown after the Super Bowl, so to speak. The Steelers are rebuilding. The Browns are going to get their quarterback back here fairly soon. But these teams are going to beat up on each other a little bit. So I'm interested to see what happens with the Bengals as they move forward. And I definitely think it helps based on who you've got to play. And the Ravens have already played a lot of tough teams. Their schedule is very top heavy. So the combined win percentage moving forward is definitely going to play a factor. And I think it's putting the Ravens as the favorite to win this division based on who they've got left to play.
And here's an interesting one: the Falcons and the Bucks, who currently are tied for first place in their division, and the remaining games look about even. The Falcons are 27-44, whereas the Buccaneers are 30-40. That's not a big differential. But when you look at the key games that the Falcons have, they got the Commanders, should be a winnable game. The Saints should be a winnable game. They do have the Ravens, and they have to play the Buccaneers again, whereas the Buccaneers have to have the Seahawks coming up this week, the surprise Seahawks. They got the Niners in week 14, and then they have the Bengals in week 15 before they face the Falcons in week 18. So I think that gives you a little bit of hope for the Falcons if the Buccaneers can't get everything straightened out.
Yeah, and let's be honest. I mean, last week, everybody's talking about Tom Brady and how he led them to a victory.
God, please.
How can you seriously look at that game and talk about how great Tom Brady played? I mean, they had 6 points through 3 quarters.
Right.
And it was their offense was abysmal. I mean, the Rams just got tired because their offense proved to be worse, and they just couldn't even get a first down down the stretch. The Rams couldn't. So the Rams defense was out in the field the entire game. And if you looked at the fourth quarter, they couldn't do anything. They looked like they had cement in their feet. And they couldn't move, and they just anything that they wanted to do on that last drive, the Bucs were able to do. But you can't sit there and tell me how great Tom Brady is after watching that game, and have a serious look on your face, because the Buccaneers' offense was just pitiful. And
He made
really,
one drive.
yeah, he had one drive, and it was only because the Rams just kind of let him do whatever he wanted to. Their running game for the Bucs has been horrible. And, the passing game hasn't been much better. And if they don't get some of these receivers back, I don't have much faith in the Bucs.
Let's just put it on the table here. The Rams are a bigger mess than the Bucs.
They
what
are.
It is. That's what it is. That's simple as that. That's the difference in that game.
I believe that now. I mean, it is a mess. I don't know what's going on, but the Rams do not look like the same team from last year. The running game is horrible. Their offensive line is just god awful. I mean, Matt Stafford is obviously injured. He can't throw the ball. He doesn't have time to throw the ball. Even if he could throw it, he doesn't have time to do it. Their running game is just pitiful. I don't get it. They let Sony Michel walk, but they've got Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown out there as their two lead backs, and neither one of them looks like they even want to run the ball. So I have no idea what's going on in LA right now, but they put Matt Stafford in concussion protocol, and I'm like, his arms hurt. So I don't get it. But they're gonna have John Wolford out there most likely this weekend, and could it get worse? Is the real fear I have.
It could. All right, here's another one I want to bring up. It's the number 5th least record, the Seahawks, who've been the surprise team. Combined record of remaining opponents 30-37, but some of the people they have to they're playing the Buccaneers this week. They still have the Niners on their schedule. They have the Chiefs in week 16 and the Jets in week 17. So, I mean, there's 4 teams right there that are going to be tough for them to go through.
Yeah, which team is this now?
The Seahawks.
The Seahawks, yeah. I think we're going to learn a lot about the Seahawks this weekend, because they're traveling to Germany, and they're going to be playing Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. And I think that, it's going to be very psychologically helpful to them if they can go travel all the way across the pond and play a game in Germany and take out the Bucs. I think it just solidifies everything that they're doing right now. And, we've admitted that we didn't believe in them coming into the year, but they've proven that they had a very successful draft in their own right. They're playing 6 rookies right now, starting 6 rookies, including the running back Kenneth Walker. And then the resurgence of Geno Smith has really, opened our eyes to the coaching ability of, both Pete Carroll and his coordinators, and then also John Schneider, the general manager, who knows what he's doing. So I think that they have played a lot of good teams and survived up to this point. And I think their strength of schedule moving forward is definitely something that's going to help the Seahawks keep this thing going.
And then we get the Niners, who have a 36-43 combined record left. But 2 teams that are their key games before their game or week 15 matchup with the Seahawks, they got to match the Chargers, who seem to have gotten a little bit better, and the Dolphins in week 13. So what do you think about that? If they can get through those 2 teams, maybe they can leapfrog the Seahawks, do you think?
I think they have a chance. I mean, it's very funny to me how everybody's loving Jimmy Garoppolo again, because the Niners are starting to win some games here, and
we never stopped loving Jimmy.
We didn't. We both thought that he should be the starter, and I think they had the bye week at the right time. They were severely banged up, especially on defense, and trading for Christian McCaffrey, I think is big. I mean, we saw what he did the week before, And moving ahead here in week 10, looking at who the Niners have got, playing obviously against the Chargers. The Niners are favored by 7, even though the Chargers have a better record and are coming off a win. So I think that says a lot as far as what people are thinking about the Niners right now.
And then we'll look at the Chargers. Their combined record of remaining opponents 35, 39, and 1. They have the Niners, like we said, this week. They have the Chiefs in week 11. They follow the Chiefs right after the Niners. And they have the Dolphins and Titans on their schedule still left. For a team that seemingly is getting together, we both have our doubts about their coach. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, they're another team that's suffering a lot of injuries right now. The biggest thing for them is their wide receivers. They need to get Keenan Allen back. I think they're really figuring out how important Keenan Allen is. And let's be honest, okay? Last week against the Falcons, the Chargers got extremely lucky in that game. I mean, there was 4 or 5 plays that went in the Chargers' favor. That could have easily gone the other direction, and to get out of there with a win over the Falcons at 20-17, they should all be thanking the good Lord for that one, because that game was kind of a mess. And that's what the NFL is, though. If you can win those games that you really have no business winning, that's when you know, hey, we got something here and let's build on it. So I'm very interested to see what they look like next week. And I think that's a pivotal game, the one we just talked about, the Niners versus the Chargers. And I think it could really determine the outcome of both those teams moving forward.
All right, the next 2 teams I'm going to ask you to look at are really serious. One is your neighbor from the Titans, 37, 38, and 1. But here are some of the key games they got left in their schedule. We got the Bengals in 2 weeks, followed by the Eagles. Then they got the Chargers, and then they got the Cowboys in week 17. Tannehill, is he supposed to be back this week? I think he's supposed to be back, right?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, that's kind of what's going to be the deciding factor is Tannehill healthy, and can he get back to the good Tannehill, because we saw what they can do. I mean, this team is not pretty. It's not something that's really
punch you in the mouth.
Yeah, they're not really beautiful to watch, but they get the job done. I mean, how they ended up losing that game against the Chiefs last week on Sunday Night Football, I have no idea. They had the ball almost the entire game. Derrick Henry ran for over 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. Malik Willis was 5 of 16 for 80 yards, but yet they were controlling that football game, and it took Kansas City driving the length of the field as time was expiring, scoring, and then getting a 2-point conversion to send it into overtime. That's how they won the game. So, I love Mike Vrabel and what he's doing. He's probably doing more with less than anybody in this league right now. So you can't count the Titans out, but they, shame on them for leaving it up to Malik Willis. I mean, this guy is obviously not ready to play. 5 of 16 for 80 yards. I mean, we might as well have put PJ Walker's name on his back of his jersey, because they had about the same game going in last week, yet one team almost won and the other one did not. So I think that the Titans did themselves a real disservice by not having a veteran on this team that could come in if Tannehill went down and survive for a couple of games. I mean, the only beautifully scary thing is that they actually won a game with Malik Willis at the helm and almost won 2. So, they need to get Tannehill back quickly. But I think that with the Colts going the direction they are, and the Jaguars, sucking as bad as they do, as well as the Texans, I mean, their division is horrible. And the good news is they get to play a couple of those teams moving forward. They get the Broncos next. They get the Packers. I mean, those are their next 2 games are Broncos-Packers. I mean, that should be 2 wins right there. And then they get the Jaguars, the Texans, and the Jaguars again to end out the schedule. I mean, their only tough games that I'm looking at here are they've got to play the Bengals. They got to play the Chargers, which could give them a little bit of a test, and then they got to play the Cowboys. So I believe that the schedule for the Titans is really set up for them to make a run.
Here's a team that's going to be very interesting is the Dolphins. The combined record of their opponents left are 33, 33, and 1, but starting with week 13, they travel to the Niners. Week 14, they travel to the Chargers. Week 15, depending on Josh Allen, they travel to the Bills. Week 17, they travel to the Patriots. That's two Northeast games where we'll see how Tua adapts with that passing game coming up in Northeast. Before in week 18, they get the Jets at home. That's a tough schedule.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at it right now, they get next week. This week they're playing the Browns. Who are struggling a little bit. So I expect them to win that game, especially where their offense is exploding. And then they play the Texans. So I look at them to win the next two games and then be sitting there, at 8-3 going into that Niners game. So we'll really see what they're about going into that Niners game. If they can, their offense can keep rolling out in San Francisco, I think we'll really know where they're headed. But that's two games in a row that they've got with the Browns and the Texans that I think they have a really good chance to win both of those. And I think their defense is going to get a little bit better now that they've added, their boy from Denver, the pass rusher. I think that's going to be huge, getting Bradley Chubb into the mix. And then also they're getting healthy at the right time. So I think if this defense can just hold serve, so to speak, and keep playing kind of like they are, maybe a little bit better down the stretch, I think the Dolphins are set up pretty good, honestly.
All right, we're going to look at a quick NFC East. We got the Eagles, who have the Titans in week 13, the Giants in week 14, 16. They're at the Cowboys. They go to the Giants on week 14. They're at the Cowboys week 16, and week 18 they have the Giants at home. Those are divisional games. We'll see if the Giants are for real. But I know that the Cowboys defense going down there is going to be tough, and we'll see what the Titans can do. But I think the Eagles are in good shape. I don't worry about the undefeated things. I think they're in really good shape. What about you?
Yeah, I think they're in great shape. I mean, look at them right now. They're 8-0. They've got the Commanders this week. They've already beat the Commanders once, 24-8. And then the week after that, they go to Indianapolis to play the Colts. Then they come back home to play the Packers. So I could see them easily being 11-0 without question. And then they play the Titans and the Giants, where the competition gets a little bit tougher. But I still could see them winning both of those games. And really, after that, they go to the Bears and to the Cowboys. Those are two winnable games, in my opinion. And they already beat the Cowboys 26-17. And the Bears, although, have shown some life with Justin Fields really stepping up big time. But I still think the Eagles are a much better team than them and should handle them. So really, those last couple of games, where they played the Saints and the Giants, hell, they may be resting their guys in those two because they probably should have the division locked up at that point and maybe the number one seed.
And then the Cowboys, they have a week 11 match going up to Minnesota to face the 7-1 Vikings. It'll be a good test for both those teams to see who the real team is. They got the Giants at home. They go to the Eagles, like we talked about, and then they go to the Titans, week 17. Cowboys, I think they're in pretty good shape. Like I said, I think the week 11 is going to tell us a lot because we're going to about both teams, whether the Vikings are really a 7-1 division championship type team and whether the Cowboys are going to stay in it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I believe in the Vikings right now. I think they've proven it over the last few weeks. I mean, think about the only loss the Vikings have had all year is to the Eagles. So, and that was a game where they just didn't really play that well. So I'm definitely a believer of the Vikings. And, as far as the Cowboys go, I don't know if I am or not. I'm going to be very interested to see, how they do this week at Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay is just couldn't be in a worse position than they are right now. Would they lost 4 in a row for the first time in Aaron Rodgers' career. He was the reason that they lost the game last week. I mean, 3 interceptions in the red zone. Are you kidding me? $59 million they're paying this guy to pull that kind of crap. It's an utter joke. And so I think that, the Cowboys are going to prove a lot to me if they can go into Lambeau and kick the crap out of the Packers this weekend, because they definitely should, the way that the Packers are playing. It'll be interesting to me if they do go in and kick the crap out of them. Do the Packers start to think about, putting Jordan Love out there. I mean, that's what we keep hearing about. And
I don't get the logic in that. I really don't. We know what Jordan Love is, okay? And the fact of the matter is, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. With the money they owe Aaron Rodgers, he's not going to walk away from that money left on the table. They would take a $91 million cap if they cut him this year?
Yeah, but they could potentially trade him. I mean, that's the thing is if someone wants to pick up that salary, I mean, I bet you the Colts would like to have Aaron Rodgers right now. He's definitely better than Sam Ellinger. I don't think they're really going to put Jordan Love out there. I really don't. I
think it's a Matt LaFleur watch we have to start thinking about. Matt LaFleur, especially if they bottom out. I mean, he's won the division since he's been there, but I mean,
the guy's won 13 games a year every season he's been the coach. I mean, is that all him? Definitely not. But I don't think you can fire this guy after going 13-3 3 years in a row.
Yeah, stranger things have happened. All right, now let's take a quick look at the Giants. We know they got to go to the Cowboys on week 12. They got 2 games with the Eagles, and they have to go to the Vikings in week 16 for my G-men. Those are the 4 key games. Could they at least get one of those 3 games, and then if they win their other games, maybe sneak into the playoffs?
You know, I don't know. I'm not really sure what to make of this Giants team right now. Obviously, I think that they have kind of overachieved thus far. They've won a bunch of close games, especially that week 1 game against the Titans, that going for 2. I'm still blown away by that. And then, you know, they won week 2 with that late field goal to beat the Panthers 19-16. Then they lost to the Cowboys, and they beat the Bears 2012. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure really what to think about this Giants team, but the good news is they've got the Texans and the Lions the next 2 weeks. So let's be honest, they should be 8-2 after the next 2 weeks if they just handle business. If they can go into the Cowboys, you know, on the road 8-2 and take them down, well, hell, I think anything's possible after that.
Man, we look at the Bills quickly because if Josh Allen's out, they're dead. I just looked at their schedule. The remaining teams they got left: week 10, Vikings; week 13, at the Patriots; week 14, the Jets come to town; week 15, we talked about the Dolphins coming to town; week 17, they go to the Bengals; week 18, they got the Patriots. That is if Josh Allen is at all banged up and can't play, that's a tough schedule.
Well, yeah, and you know, he's the stir that stirs the drink for their team. I mean, this guy is MVP candidate. He's their running game. He's their passing game. He's their leader. He's not practicing right now. He's definitely not going to play this week against the Vikings. And their schedule is one of the more difficult ones moving forward. I think they're in big trouble too if he doesn't play. I mean, I like this team, but their defense hasn't really impressed me as much the last few weeks. I mean, the Jets ran all over them last week and took them down. So I definitely am concerned if Josh Allen's not playing. I think the Bills could be in real trouble, especially with the rest of the teams in their division playing so well.
And then we'll do 2 more quick. The Bengals got they go to the Titans. They got the Chiefs at home. They go to the Patriots. They got the Bills at home, and then they got the Ravens. Bengals are going to have to have their work cut out for them. Can they find the magic of last year?
I don't know. I mean, they're kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team too. I mean, if you think about the way they looked on Halloween against the Browns, I mean, maybe they were all in costume and that really wasn't the Bengals because they certainly didn't look like them. I mean, they got their asses kicked and it was embarrassing. And, me and you talked it. They just refused to hand the ball to Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
And then they come back the next week and he scores 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that had to do with the Panthers and them sucking, but at least they, handed the ball off and, had a real commitment to the running game. The good news for the Bengals is they get to play the Steelers this week. I think that's should be a pretty easy victory for them. But then their schedule sets up pretty difficult, honestly. I think the Bengals could really be in jeopardy of missing the playoffs because after the Steelers game that I just mentioned, they go to Tennessee, then they play Kansas City, then they play the Browns, which should be the first game that Watson is back, one of the first games, and then they play the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay, and then go to New England, and then they finish their schedule with the Bills and the Ravens, as you mentioned. So I think the Bengals are in. I think they're in big time trouble, and I think it's going to be very, very possible that they miss out on the playoffs with this schedule moving forward.
Well, the last team we'll look at quickly is the Patriots, and we're going to see if the football gods love Bill Belichick and his team, because first of all, they get the Jets, who will be looking for revenge and have a lot of confidence coming off the bye week, and their last thing they remember is the Bills and beating up on the Bills, and they're going to be looking for revenge. Then they have been in week 12. They go to the Vikings, another test for the Vikings to see how good they are. Then they got the Bills coming to town. Then they got the Bengals coming to town. Then they go to they got the Dolphins coming to town, and then they finish at the Bills. That's going to be a tough road for Bill Belichick and his team. But it would get much, much easier if Josh Allen's not ready to go. So, what do you think?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, the Bills the Patriots have been kind of up and down, but I think they've finally figured out the quarterback position. Mac Jones is healthy. He's been re-solidified as the starter. I think that's huge. Plus, David Andrews is going to return. After the bye week, they're going to get him back on the 20th. So the Patriots having the bye right now, I think is good for them because they need David Andrews back. They've also got some guys banged up on defense, and they've got a week for Belichick to game plan against the Jets. If they can take out the Jets and have beat them twice in 4 weeks, that's going to be big for me and what I think about the Patriots and their chances moving forward. So we'll see. It all depends on the health of Josh Allen, obviously. If it's as minor as they're trying to portray, the Patriots, could be left out of the mix. But if he's banged up and can't go, they could have some trouble. But, the good news is the Patriots have got 2 of their road games moving forward are at the Arizona Cardinals and at the Raiders. That's pretty good if you've got to go to those 2 places as your road games, because I think both of those should be W's.
All right, let's do our top 10s and get rid of our house cleaning here. Did you do your top 10?
I did.
Go ahead. You want to start it out and give it to me?
No, you go first this time.
All right. Top Philly got to be number 1. I put Kansas City as number 2. Minnesota is number 3. Buffalo dropped to number 4 right now because of Josh Allen. I don't know what he's thinking about or what they're thinking about or what he's got done. I got Baltimore and next, and then I put Miami, Cincinnati, Tennessee, the Jets, and Dallas.
Yeah, I've got the same up at the top. I've got the Eagles number 1. I've got the Chiefs number 2. I've got the Bills number 3. I've got the Cowboys actually number 4. I got the Ravens number 5. I got the Niners number 6. I got the Vikings number 7. The Titans number 8. I've got the Seahawks number 9 and the Jets number 10.
Jets, Jets.
Yeah, but I honestly, I think that, the more I think about it, I probably would substitute the Dolphins for the Jets just because, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are just unstoppable right now. And then you think about adding Bradley Chubb to their defense, and I really feel like the Dolphins may be a better team moving forward.
All right. My bottom 3, I got Houston, Las Vegas, and Carolina.
Yeah, that is also who I have. The only team that I might add in there or is very, very close is the Jaguars. I know they got the victory this past week, but they were down by 17 in the second half before flipping the script. And, they had lost 5 straight. And the Steelers are pretty close too. But, the Colts, I think, are going to be heading in this direction.
They're heading to join that.
They're going to join this team. So you got, I've really got if you want to add it up,
the 5.
I've got 5. I've got the Jaguars. I've got the Lions. I've got the Colts. I've got the Texans, and I got the Panthers. And right there behind them is the Steelers.
The good thing for the NFL is that means they have 27 good teams. Because
That's pretty much true.
that's pretty damn good. All right, who are your players of the week?
I had to go with Joe Mixon. That performance. I know it was the Panthers, but they actually have a pretty decent defense, and 5 touchdowns. Wasn't the last guy to do that, Gale Sayers.
Yeah.
So 22 carries, 153 yards, 4 touchdowns. Had to give it up for my boy Joe Mixon. That was a huge game for him, and was very impressed to see him get that done. And then I had to include, even though it was a losing effort, I mean, you can't really blame Devontae Adams for the Raiders' struggles. 10 catches, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. The guy is just lights out. And then I also had to I got to continue to give it to my boy Gino. I mean, big time game in division on the road in Arizona. He goes for 275 and 2 touchdowns and leads the Seahawks. Even when that game was going back and forth a little bit, he stayed true and got him done. And he also ran for 40 yards. So I got to be honest, I wasn't on the Gino train before the season, but this guy looks like a different dude out there.
All right, my 3. I went with Justin Fields, number 1. Phenomenal game in a losing effort. I mean, 178 yards rushing and 123 and 3 touchdowns passing. They didn't lose because of him.
No, that was a record, by the way.
Yeah.
And the guy's got no one around him. I'm glad you did that because I love that kid. And I told you a long time ago he's a winner.
Yeah. And I went, my number 2, I went with Tua because he had such a clean game. 21 of 30, 302, 3 touchdown passes, no interceptions. Tua, I don't know how he's going to do when he has to go to the Northeast and try and hook up with these guys. But right now, he's showing that Alabama, what he did to Alabama wasn't just Saban and having a great team around him. And then my number 3 guy is Joe Mixon, of course. Joe Mixon, you talked about it. Cincinnati getting a running game together. And look how it paid off. Hopefully that coach, Zach Taylor, will figure it out and say, yeah, maybe I don't have to put it all on Joe Burrow's back. I have another Joe in my lineup I can give the ball to.
Maybe I should hand it off.
Yeah. So, all right. Last week in the picks, I was 2-1. So I'm 15-12 on the year. Do you want me to make my picks now, or do you want to do the picks first?
I can go first. I was actually 2-1 also. Remember the one game we split on was the Seattle game. You picked the Cardinals and I picked Seattle. Right. So I won that one, just for the folks at home. But I've got the Vikings this week. They are the Buffalo is favored by 3.5, and no Josh Allen, or a banged up Josh Allen, or even if they had Josh Allen, I'm kind of leaning towards the Vikings right now, and I'm picking them to at least cover. Maybe lose by 3. I don't care. As long as they cover the spread, I'm good with that. And then I'm taking the Bears this week. Bears are favored by 3 in Soldier Field versus the Lions. I think they're going to win by more than 3. So I'm taking them. And then I've also got the Titans, who are playing the Broncos in Nashville. Titans are favored by 3. And I think hopefully they'll get Tannehill back. And if they do, I expect them to win by more than that.
All right. I agreed with you on the Bears. I got the Bears myself. I don't think just because Detroit had a defensive effort against Aaron Rodgers, I don't think Justin Fields will throw 3 interceptions and do them those kind of favors. I went with the Giants, giving 4 to Houston. I don't usually like to go with my favorite team, but this is kind of a show me thing between me and my Giants here. You should win this game by 10, at least.
Should. The Texans looked pretty tough though last week against the Eagles. They played them tough.
Yeah, but the whole thing is, like I said, it's my challenge to the Giants. Show me, because as you said, they beat them, they beat the Lions, and then they're set up for the tough ending to the schedule. They can't let these 2 games get away from them.
I agree.
They got to take these 2, and they got to take them in convincing fashion. And then I went with Tampa Bay over Seattle. I not that I'm heavily doubting. I mean, I've been impressed with Pete Carroll's done and Geno Smith, but the points aren't enough for some reason. That the point looked at me. I was like, Seattle should be. If people really believed in Seattle, they should be favored over Tampa Bay, and I don't get it.
Yeah, Tampa Bay is favored by 2.5 is what I got. Is that what you got?
Yep, that's what I got too.
2.5.
And it's one of those things where I could be getting fooled by the Vegas, handicappers. Maybe they want to put money on the Tampa Bay side of the ball, or so they're Vegas covered. But I'm going to go with Tampa Bay.
I just can't believe that Tampa Bay is going to continue to keep playing this bad. I just can't believe that. I mean, they have been absolutely horrible. And as me and you discussed, if they were playing anybody but the Rams, they would have lost last week. I mean, what is, before we get out of here, what the hell did the Rams do moving forward? I mean, I just can't think of anything right now that the Rams have going for them. I mean, I know they still have Aaron Donald. He's probably wishing he retired after the Super Bowl. But this defense just gets hung out to dry because their offense is just god awful. And I don't see this offense getting any better.
And the thing about it is, I don't know if you saw McVay's press conference afterwards, but even he was throwing up his hands going, it's everything. I mean, not that it's and maybe it's great that he's so honest about it, but that's where you look at coaches over the years, and that's where they abuse Belichick for saying we're on to Cincinnati. Well, it kind of maybe gives you, when you're like McVay and you come out and you say that, what are you saying that to your locker room? You don't have the answers. You're the one who's supposed to supply the answers for these guys. You're supposed to have the direction. We got to block better. We got to tackle better. We just said this was an off week. Find the negatives, but also find some positives. Do something, not just throw your hands in the air and go, I got to coach better. They got to play better. I got to do this. I have no answers. It's all of us. I don't know. I think it comes from the top. I think this is like adversity that McVay wasn't ready for. Maybe it's a Super Bowl hangover. The loss of Von Miller is huge. The offensive line losses were huge.
Yeah, I think the offensive line is what he really didn't think about enough. I mean, obviously he knew Whitworth leaving was big, but that guy was old. I mean, they knew that he was on his way out the door.
They're eventually going to leave. They're eventually going to retire. No one plays forever. And when the guy, what was he, 35, 36, 37? How old was the guy?
Yeah, he's pushing 40 years old.
Yeah, so I mean, that's not an unexpected retirement. That was something you should have planned on your big board.
But they really didn't have anybody to replace him.
No, I mean, look for free agents. Look for somebody out there. The guy the Brown who the Jets brought in from Seattle.
Yeah,
something.
No, I agree. I just think they downplayed the offensive line and they really didn't prepare for some of the losses. Yeah, Whitworth was 40 years old last year, so that's a fact. And I just don't know. I think they lost a couple of wide receivers and they didn't replace any of them.
Allen Robinson has not worked out.
Yeah, and I feel like they kind of overvalued Van Jefferson. I mean, what the hell has Van Jefferson really done? All I kept hearing was, Van Jefferson's going to be back in a couple of weeks. Van Jefferson's going to provide a spark. Who the hell's Van Jefferson? I mean, his dad was pretty good, but is he? I mean, I don't think so. He doesn't scare me, and every time he's open, he drops it, and half the time he's not open. So you got that going for you, and then you got John Wolford potentially starting this weekend, and Cam Akers, who doesn't even want to be on the team and doesn't show up half the time, and yet nothing happens to him. So
right.
This has just been a joke of a season for the Rams, and I guess they're really glad they won the Super Bowl last year because they ain't winning it this year.
And and especially for McVay, who's the running game is so vital for him, and to not have a good running attack or running backs ready. I mean, there are running backs around. I mean, the Niners go out and get McCaffrey. I mean, where was your move there?
Yeah, I don't know. Why did they let they let Sony Michel walk,
Yeah.
and that guy, did a lot of good stuff for them last year, and is a player that's won several Super Bowls, and they just acted like he was nobody. So
You know
I
what?
don't know what the plan was.
You know what I really love about Sony Michel is he has fresh legs because of how he was used in the Patriot by the Patriots. Is he wasn't one of these guys that was a 200 carry guy. He was a guy that they might use him 1 week and never use him for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, and
Fresh
now,
legs.
yeah, now he's still barely getting to play. So I don't know. I just don't understand what the plan was in Los Angeles, and I just can't believe how bad that Rams offense is. I mean, we always used to give so much credit to him with his play calling, but without a run game, his play calling looks horrible.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're not scaring anybody. So what do we got on man coverage this week?
Man coverage this week, we are going to be breaking down all of college football week 11. We've got several big time ball games tomorrow. USC is playing, and then the big one coming up this weekend is obviously Alabama and Ole Miss is a huge game. That is the 3:30 CBS game. We're going to be breaking that one down hardcore. A kind of an unexpected one is UCF is playing Tulane, the first two ranked teams playing in Yulman Stadium in New Orleans, Louisiana since 1943, when the Tulane took on LSU for the Tiger Rag, as the game used to be called. So big one there. And then another game that I'm looking forward to seeing is also TCU in Texas. I'm taking the Longhorns to upset the 9-0 Horned Frogs, and we're going to be breaking that one down. And then also 7 p.m. start, Washington's going to Oregon to see if they can slow down Bo Nix, your boy, who I cannot believe the season that he is having. I did not predict it. I admit when I'm right, because I always do that, but I also need to admit when I'm wrong, and I did not think that Bo Nix would be playing at this type of level, especially after watching him in week 1 get his ass kicked by Georgia.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, we got to pump the brakes just a little bit because it is out there in the Pac-12, not the SEC.
Yes, this is what I've been telling people too. I was like, yeah, he's looked great ever since the Georgia game. I'm like, well, yeah, because he's not playing Georgia. He's playing Arizona State. He's playing Washington State. He's playing the Pac-12 teams, which Pac-12 is better than advertised. But look at the teams he's been beaten up on: Cal, Arizona, Stanford, Washington State, who they barely beat. BYU, Eastern Washington. I mean, it's not like a really stellar resume. So that's why I think, these next 2 weeks are going to be very interesting. Everybody's ready to put the Ducks in the Pac-12 championship game. Well, not so fast, my friend, as Lee Corso would have said 5 years ago when he knew what was going on. Washington this week, and then Utah next week. I could see Oregon definitely losing next week to Utah.
One quick thing before we go. Marcus Freeman got his first big victory as a head coach over Clemson. The defense came through. I don't think Drew Pine did that much. I looked at the stats because I was not available on Saturday night. I was at a party, a pre-Thanksgiving party, and they didn't have the game on. But
you didn't get to watch Dabo get his ass kicked?
No, I didn't get to watch it.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Well, I think he's going to not want to go to Notre Dame Stadium anytime soon because it seems when he goes there, his team turns into jelly. Well, actually, they didn't play that bad the first time around. Just Ian Book played a little bit better. But the defense, and now is it time for Clemson to pull the plug on that quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We discussed this on the show. We're not sure what's going on. I mean, he finally did pull the plug, and he put Cade Klubnik out there. He threw one pass, it got picked off and returned for a pick six, and they took him out and put DJU back in to lead two scoring drives that were utterly meaningless. So I have no clue what's happening right now. We've been talking about the quarterback position all year long down there in Clemson, and we didn't really understand why he didn't make the move a couple weeks ago. And he certainly paid for it on Saturday night because the Irish
just licked their chops on defense. They kicked their ass. I mean, Drew Pine completed 9 passes for 85 yards, and they were up 35-0. So that tells you the kind of day that the defense and the running game had versus the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, all right, my friend, have another good weekend, and we will be back next week. We're going to see what happens week 10 in the NFL. Everybody hang in there. See you next week.
All right, buddy.